When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. It wasn't the smile of happiness. Not at all. It was the smile of a bridge realizing it is no longer needed. The water it was built over has changed its course. The land on the other side has grown its own roads. The smile was the quiet sound of understanding, finally arriving after a long, long journey. She stood there, in the doorway of what I still thought of, in my deepest heart, as my son's home. Her arms were crossed. Her face was not unkind. It was final, like someone closing a book they've already read. "Mom," she said, and the word felt like a pebble, smooth and cold. "I think it's time for you to go back to your own place now. We need space." And I smiled. I nodded. I gathered my little bag, the one I'd brought for a weekend visit that had stretched into a week. I didn't argue. I didn't remind her that I'd come to help, because my son had sounded so tired on the phone. I didn't say that this was the same hallway where I'd taught that son to walk, his tiny hands gripping my fingers like life itself. I just smiled, because the deepest cuts don't bleed right away. They just go numb. And in that numbness, all you can do is smile at the surgeon. The real pain, you see, didn't start in that doorway. It started long before. It started when the phone call stopped. My name is Lena. For most of my life, I was just Ben's mom. Ben was my world. A cliché, I know. Every mother probably says that. But with Ben it was different. His father, my Michael, was a good man. But his heart gave out on a Tuesday morning when Ben was just 7. It was so quiet. One moment he was breathing, the next, he was just gone. It left a silence in our house so big it seemed to swallow the light. So, it was just Ben and me. We were a team of 2. A tiny, determined unit against the world. I worked 2 jobs, secretary by day, bakery cleaner by night, to keep the roof over our heads and the books in his hands. Ben was a quiet boy. Thoughtful. He had his father's serious eyes. He wasn't one for big speeches or grand gestures. His love was a quiet, steady thing that it showed in the little ways. He'd make me a cup of tea after my late shift. The water never quite hot enough, the bag left in too long. It would be bitter and lukewarm. It was the most delicious thing I'd ever tasted. He'd leave notes in my lunchbox. Simple ones. "Don't work too hard." Or just a drawing of a smiling sun. I have a shoebox full of those notes. They are one of my treasures. And the phone calls. That was our ritual. From the moment he left for university, he called. Every Sunday evening like clockwork. 7 p.m. The phone would ring, and my heart would lift. Mom. "Hi, my love. How are you? Tired? Exams are coming. But okay. How are you? Oh, you know. Same old. Mrs. Daly's cat got stuck in her tree again. I made that stew you like." We'd talk about nothing. Everything. The weather. His classes. My funny customers at the bakery. The conversations weren't dramatic. They were a heartbeat. A steady, reassuring pulse connecting his new world to my old one. That Sunday call was my anchor. It was the proof I needed that the cord, though stretched, was not broken. It was the sound of him, still my boy, in the middle of his becoming a man, that I lived for the sound of his voice saying, "Hi, Mom." I was so proud of the man he became. He got a good job in the city 2 hours away. He bought a small house. I helped with the down payment, every penny of my savings. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was an investment in his happiness. His future. When he moved in, I came for a week. We painted walls together. I remember standing on a step stool, my back aching, rolling pale blue paint onto his bedroom ceiling. He was next to me, cutting in the edges. We didn't talk much. Just the sound of the brush, the roller, our breathing. It was one of the happiest silences of my life. We were building his nest. And then he met Chloe. I remember the day he told me about her. It wasn't on a Sunday. It was a Wednesday afternoon. He called, and his voice had a different sound. A lifted sound. "Mom," he said. "I met someone." His words were like sunlight breaking through after a long winter. I cried. Happy tears. All I ever wanted was for him not to be alone. For him to have what I had with Michael, even if it was cut short. To have a partner, a love, a family of his own. The first time I met her, I was nervous. I cooked for 2 days. I cleaned my small apartment until it shone. I wanted her to like me. I wanted to be the easy mother-in-law, the helpful one, not the interfering one. Chloe was beautiful. Sharp, clever, full of energy. She had a career in marketing. She talked fast, thought faster. She was everything my quiet, methodical Ben was not. And he looked at her like she had hung the moon. His eyes followed her around the room. He smiled in a way I hadn't seen since he was a child. She made him laugh, a big unreserved laugh. For that alone I loved her. I thought we got along. I asked about her work. I complimented her style. I tried so hard. When they left that night, she gave me a quick, perfumed hug. It was so nice to finally meet you, Lena, she said. It was the first time she called me by my name. Not Mom. I pushed the thought away. It was modern. It was fine. They married a year later. A beautiful wedding in a garden. I sat in the front row, Michael's photo in my small clutch purse. When Ben saw Chloe walk down the aisle, he wept. Silent tears just rolling down his cheeks. And I wept too. It was perfect. My boy was embarking on his great adventure. I was so ready to step back, to be a quiet supporter in the wings, to cheer from a gentle distance. I just didn't know how far back I'd have to step, or that I'd eventually step right out of the picture. The change was slow, like the tide going out. You don't notice the water leaving until you see the sand where the waves once were. The first thing to go was the Sunday call. It didn't stop all at once. It became the Sunday maybe call. One week, he'd call at 8 instead of 7. Sorry, Mom. We were out with Chloe's friends. The next, it would be a short text. Asterisk crazy day. Chat tomorrow. Asterisk tomorrow would come and go. Then it became the catch-up call every other week. Then once a month. The rhythm was broken. When we did talk, the conversations were different. Shorter. Rushed. He was always just about to do something, or in the middle of something. How are you, Ben? Good, Mom. Really good. Busy. You? I'm fine. The usual. My knee's been a bit stiff with the rain. That's too bad. Listen, Mom, Chloe's got dinner ready. I've gotta go. Of course. Give her my love. I will. Love you. Love you more. Click. The silence after those calls grew heavier and heavier. I'd hold the phone in my hand, the plastic still warm, and stare at the photographs on my mantelpiece. The little boy with the scraped knee. The graduate in his gown. The groom with tears in his eyes. Where was he now? The visits changed too. I used to go over for a Sunday lunch every few weeks. I'd bring a pie. We'd sit at his table, the one we'd picked out together at a flea market, and talk. Now the invitations were less frequent. And when I was there, Chloe was the sun around which everything orbited. The conversations were no longer about us, about our shared past. They were about their future, their plans, their vacation, the renovation they were planning for the house. I was an audience of one for the show of their life together. One Saturday, I was helping Chloe in the kitchen. She was reorganizing the cabinets, a sudden energetic project. I was holding a stack of plates. You know, Lena, she said, not looking at me, as she wiped down a shelf. This kitchen layout is so inefficient. We're going to knock down that wall next year. Open concept. It's what everyone does. I looked at the wall. The one where Ben's height chart was still faintly penciled. I could almost see the little marks. Asterisk age 5. Age 7. Age 10 asterisk. That's a load-bearing wall, isn't it? I said softly. Oh, the contractor says it's fine. It'll make everything so much brighter. More modern. It's just, Ben's height marks are on there. She paused, cloth in hand. She gave a small, dismissive laugh. Oh, that old thing. We'll take a photo before we tear it down. It'll be in the digital cloud forever. The digital cloud. The words felt so cold. They weren't memories to be lived with. They were data to be stored. I held the plates a little tighter. Ben came in then, looking for a snack. What's up? He asked. Your mom's being sentimental about the wall, Chloe said, smiling at him. A conspiratorial smile. Ben glanced at me, then at the wall. A flicker of something passed over his face, memory, nostalgia. Then it was gone, smoothed away by his wife's practical vision. Yeah, he said, putting an arm around her. It'll be a great space when it's done, Mom. You'll see. He called me Mom. But in that moment, he felt farther away than ever. He was on her side of the wall already. The small criticisms began. Gentle, but constant. They were like tiny drops of water on a stone. About my cooking. Oh, Lena, you use so much butter. We're trying to eat cleaner now. About my clothes. That's a nice classic cardigan. About my apartment. Isn't it a lot of work to keep a 2-bedroom place just for you? There are lovely modern senior studios now. Each time, Ben would be silent. He'd look at his phone, or suddenly become very interested in the view outside the window. He never defended me. He never said, I love Mom's cooking, or she likes her house. His silence was a blanket that smothered my words before I could even speak them. Each time, Ben would be silent. He'd look at his phone, or suddenly become very interested in the view outside the window. He never defended me. He never said, I love Mom's cooking, or she likes her house. His silence was a blanket that smothered my words before I could even speak them. I started to feel like a ghost in my own son's life. I was present, but unseen. I could speak, but unheard. I began to doubt myself. Was I too clingy? Was I too old-fashioned? Was I, as Chloe's comments hinted, a burden? So I pulled back. I waited for invitations. I stopped offering advice. I tried to be smaller, quieter, less me. I thought if I took up less space, there would be more room for me in their lives. I was wrong. The breaking point came in autumn. The trees were turning, and the world felt fragile. Ben called on a Thursday. His voice was strained, tired. Mom, Chloe's got a big work conference for a week. And I've got this massive project deadline. The house is a mess. We're just sinking. Could you possibly come and help? Just for a few days? Make some meals, tidy up? It would be a lifesaver. My heart, which had been shrinking, swelled with purpose. He needed me. My boy needed me. Of course, I said without a moment's hesitation. I'll be there tomorrow. I packed my bag with a joy I hadn't felt in months. I baked his favorite cookies. I bought groceries for the meals I knew would comfort him. I was going to help my son. For the first few days, it was like old times. Ben was grateful, relieved. He'd come home from work to a clean house and the smell of chicken soup. He'd eat 2 bowls. We'd sit and watch a little TV. He was too tired to talk much, but his shoulder leaned against mine on the couch. It was enough. Then Chloe came back early. She arrived on a Sunday evening. I was in the kitchen, putting the final touches on a lasagna. Ben was setting the table. We heard her key in the lock. Honey, I'm home, she called out, her voice bright. She came into the kitchen, dropped her suitcase. She gave Ben a quick kiss, then turned to me. Her smile was tight. Oh, Lena, you're still here. I made lasagna, I said, wiping my hands on a towel. Welcome back. How was the conference? Exhausting, she said, not answering the question. She looked around the kitchen. It was spotless. She opened the fridge, saw the containers of food I'd prepared. She closed it. You've been busy. Dinner was quiet. The lasagna, which Ben usually loved, sat largely untouched on Chloe's plate. She pushed it around with her fork. It's very heavy, she said. My system is just off from travel. After dinner, Ben went to load the dishwasher. Chloe motioned for me to follow her into the living room. Lena, she began, her voice low. We're so grateful for your help. Really. But Ben and we need to find our own rhythm. Our own way of managing the house. When you step in like this, it doesn't let us build that. It keeps him dependent. Each word was a careful, precise needle. I was just trying to help, I whispered. He asked me. I know, she said, her tone implying that was part of the problem. And he's a sweetheart for it. But he needs to learn to handle things with me, not run to his mom. The unspoken words hung in the air. Asterisk, you are the problem. Your help is a hindrance. Your love is a chain. Asterisk. Ben walked in then, holding a teacup. Everything okay? Chloe's face instantly softened into a smile. Just having a chat with your mom about boundaries, honey. She said it so lightly, as if discussing the weather. Ben's eyes flicked from her to me. He saw my face, I know he did. He saw the hurt, the confusion. He took a sip of his tea. He said nothing. That was the night I went to bed in their guest room and felt like an intruder. I heard their muffled voices through the wall. I couldn't make out words, just the low murmur of his, the sharper cadence of hers. Then silence. The next morning, I decided to leave. I would make breakfast, pack my bag, and go. I wanted to leave with grace, before I was asked to. I was in the kitchen, scrambling eggs, when Chloe came in. She was dressed for work, sharp and efficient. "You don't have to do that, Lena," she said. "It's no trouble. I wanted to make you both breakfast before I head off." She leaned against the countertop, watching me. The silence stretched. Then she spoke. "Lena, I think it's best if you go back home today." I turned off the stove. I was planning to. "No, I mean," she took a breath. "I think it's time for you to go back to your own place now. We need space. To be a family." There it was. The line in the sand. Our own family. A family that by definition did not include me. And that's when I smiled. The bridge smile. The understanding smile. I didn't look for Ben. I knew he was upstairs getting ready. I knew he could hear. His silence was louder than any words. His silence was his agreement. I packed my bag. The cookies were still in the tin uneaten. I left them on the counter. As I walked to the front door, Chloe stood there. She looked almost sorry. "It's for the best," she said softly. I nodded. I smiled again. And I stepped out into the cool autumn morning. The door closed behind me with a soft, final click. The drive home was a blur. 2 hours of gray road and silent tears that wouldn't even fall. I just felt hollow. Scraped clean. When I got into my apartment, the silence was different. Before, it was the silence of waiting. For a call, for a visit. Now it was the silence of knowledge. The knowing that the call wouldn't come. The visit was not desired. This was it. This was my life now. This quiet, empty space. For days, I moved like a ghost through my own home. I expected the phone to ring. I expected him to call, to explain, to apologize. To say Chloe was out of line. To say he missed me. The phone stayed silent. The pain, when it finally came, wasn't a sharp stab. It was a deep, aching bruise that covered my whole soul. It was grief. I was grieving my living son. I was grieving the boy who called every Sunday. I was grieving the future I'd imagined. Being a grandmother, having holidays, growing old as part of his story. That future was gone. Weeks passed. Then a month. The silence was a wall between us. One rainy afternoon, I found myself pulling out the shoebox from the top of my closet. The box of his notes. I sat on the floor, the rain pattering against the window, and I went through them one by one. The wobbly "I love you MOM." The careful "thank you for the birthday party." The teenage "sorry I'm late." Car trouble. Each one a stitch in the fabric of our life together. And I realized something. I had been clinging so hard to the current Ben, the married Ben, the one who chose silence, that I was forgetting all the other Bens. The boy who made me bitter tea. The young man who painted a ceiling with me. They were still real. They were still mine. Chloe could take my present. She could influence my future. But she could never, ever take my past. That was my first moment of strength. A quiet, soggy strength found on a rainy floor. I also realized the terrible, heartbreaking truth. I had taught him this. In my love, in my devotion. I had taught him that my love was unconditional and limitless. I had taught him that he could always come home. But I never taught him how to leave home properly. I never taught him that love must sometimes say no. That it has boundaries too. I had made myself endlessly available, and in doing so I had made myself disposable. When a new priority came along, he simply transferred the unlimited credit of my love to her, and left me with the deficit. It was my fault, and it was not my fault. It was just a tragedy of love. I didn't call him. I didn't guilt him. The ball was in his court. A mother's love is infinite, but a mother's dignity has its limits. Then a week before Christmas, the doorbell rang. It was him. Ben. Standing on my doorstep, holding a small potted poinsettia. He looked thinner. Older. His eyes were tired. We stood there looking at each other. Two strangers who knew each other better than anyone. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice rough. I nodded and stepped back. He came in, placed the plant on the table. The silence was thick and heavy. He didn't sit. "Mom," he started, then stopped. He rubbed his face. I don't know what to say. I've been a coward." I waited. I just looked at him. "I heard what Chloe said to you. That morning. I was at the top of the stairs. I heard it all." His voice broke. "And I didn't come down. I let her say it. I let you leave. I've been letting it happen for a long time." A single tear traced a path down his cheek. It was the first time I'd seen him cry since his wedding day. "It's easier," he whispered, "to just let it be quiet. To avoid the fight. To keep the peace at home. It's easier to miss a phone call than to have a difficult conversation." It was the path of least resistance. And I took it. Every single time. He was finally naming the monster. His own passivity. His choice of comfort over courage. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I've missed you. Every day. I didn't know how to fix it. I was ashamed." I didn't run to him. I didn't hug him. The wound was too fresh, too deep. But I felt the ice around my heart crack, just a little. Not from his apology, but from his honesty. He was finally seeing it. "Thank you for telling me that," I said, my own voice quiet. "It hurts to hear. But it's the truth. And the truth is always better than the silence." He cried then, deep, shaking sobs. My boy, broken by his own choices. I went to him then. I held him. I let him cry on my shoulder, just like when he was small and had scraped his knee. Some roles, it seems, a mother never fully retires from. But I was different now. The bridge was not just repaired as it was. It was rebuilt, with new understandings, new boundaries. "Ben," I said when his tears had subsided, "I love you. That will never change. But I am not just an extension of your life. I am my own person. I have my own life, here, in this home that I love. You have a wife. You are building a family. That is right and good. But you also have a mother. I will not fight for a seat at your table. But I will not be a ghost waiting in the hallway either." He looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed. He nodded. "What do we do?" "We find a new way," I said. "A way that respects your marriage, and my dignity. Maybe it's a phone call every other Sunday. Just you and me, for 15 minutes. Maybe it's you coming here for lunch, alone once a month. Not out of guilt. But because you want to. Because we are still part of each other's stories. A smaller part, but a real part." It wasn't the happy ending I dreamed of. It was a compromise. It was messy and sad and real. He agreed. That was a year ago. Ben calls every other Sunday now. At 7 p.m. The conversations are sometimes awkward. We are learning a new language, he and I. The language of a mother and a son who are no longer the center of each other's worlds, but who are still important landmarks. He visits me once a month. We have lunch. We talk about books, about the news, about my gardening. We talk about Chloe less. That is her space, and I have learned to let it be. Is it perfect? No. The scar is still there. I think of the Heartmark wall, probably gone now. I think of the Sunday calls that used to be my oxygen. There is a permanent ache, a soft sadness for what is lost. But there is also peace. I have filled my life with other things. I joined a community garden. I have friends for coffee. I read. I sit in the park and watch the birds. I am learning, slowly, to be Lena again. Not just Ben's mom. And in that, I found a quiet strength I never knew I had. The strength to love from a distance. The strength to hold memories without letting them drown me. The strength to accept a smaller, truer place in my son's life. Sometimes love doesn't look like holding on tight. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to relax your grip. To let the tide go out and not chase it. To trust that the love is still there, even if its shape has changed. Ben is happy. I can hear it in his voice sometimes, when he talks about a project at work, or a trip they're planning. And I am learning to be content. My heart is no longer a waiting room. It is a home with many rooms. One of them is forever reserved for my boy. But the other rooms are for me, for life, for the soft light of an ordinary, quiet afternoon. The phone call stopped after he married. And in that terrible, silent space, I had to learn to hear my own voice again. It's softer. It's older. It carries a regret. But it is mine. And it is enough.